Good morning, Dodson.
Say it like you care about it.
Good morning, Dodson.
Yeah, where's your enthusiasm?
Welcome to Two Moms and a Mic with special guest.
Video, bourbon, and a really good guest.
Yeah. Who do we got here?
Well, he has water, so that's good.
Why?
Because we have Adam Russo, who's going to see patients later.
Oh.
So he's a billion things in our world, locally.
Yeah.
Nationally, author, TED Talks, a dad who knows what he's doing. Mm-hmm. And regionally runs licensed clinical social worker who runs Edgewood Clinical Services.
Yes.
Which we have both appreciated resources from. And
for sure. He knows both of us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we wouldn't bring a stranger. Well, you've read the book.
Yeah, I have.
There's Netflix binging and then there's book binging, which Briggs is good at.
Yes.
So we're
Adam's book, Unwritten Rules.
lucky
Thank
to
you,
have Adam here for failure.
We're talking about failing and falling on your ass today.
And allowing kids to, which is hard as a parent because you want to pick them up and make sure that and coddle them, but you get to love them through letting them fail. And this is what you do most of your talks about, right?
Yeah, I mean, the vast majority, I think I've spoken to, I don't know, I mean, it seems like thousands of kids over the past couple of years, thousands of parents.
Well, you've done all of
quite a
our
bit.
local schools.
And then
well
all the way
attended.
into Chicago, western suburbs, out of state. It's a pretty popular topic and one that seems to resonate.
And I think it's growing too in a way. And maybe this is just where I'm at as a mom, but I feel like it's a growing topic only in that I feel like it's a new thing to develop your style of mothering, right? Like branding yourself as a person is a thing now. So branding who you are as a mom is a thing also. Mm-hmm. And it feels comforting in the new world of, oh my God, I'm a mom, to say, well, I'm going to choose this path. I'm going to be this way, right? Like to give yourself some absolutes feel good. I mean, it's not going to work. We don't want to tell them yet, but
well,
it
yeah,
feels,
when you're a new mom, you don't
I
know
mean,
that
you
that's...
go right ahead
Yeah.
and don't ever use a cloth diaper in out in public, you know.
Good luck with that.
Yeah, or I mean, disposable.
Right. Disposable.
But but as a new mom, you do have all of your ideals, and nobody ever says, "Well, I'm going to make sure to let my kid fail." That's not a thing that people decide to do.
It's not, but it's been interesting over the past, especially with technology, everybody started to expect perfection. You want to pick up your phone, you want to be able to order what you want, get what you want, have it go quickly and easily. And what we realized is that as time goes on, like life doesn't really work that way. So when you start parenting to the idea that, my kids should be able to, do well in school or, make a sports team just as easily as I can, order whatever I want from Amazon, it really messes with your perception on what the world is. And so when that happens, people get all thrown off. What do you mean? Like my kid isn't going to an Ivy League school? What do you mean? Like they're not doing this? What do you mean?
For that.
I did, yeah. Like it's like the Staples Easy button.
Well,
right?
there's that
like,
illusion. There's that illusion of the instant gratification for everything.
Yep,
well, and
there
I
is.
think that it goes with the control too, right? Those illusions go together.
Well,
somehow,
a little bit.
or-
I mean, it went from it starts to be from like control to you want everything to come quickly and easily. But then the best part of this whole thing was when people started saying, you know what, I actually want to eliminate stress and anxiety from my life. So as long as I can over control and everything can go well, guess what? My kids will actually be perpetually happy.
Oh.
And isn't that what we're going for?
no.
That they don't have to experience any hardships at all?
No.
But that's the way people think. And so that's why the failure part is so hard, because a lot of kids learn through failure also through the emotions of like guilt, shame, embarrassment, disappointment. But when you have a parent who's trying to remove problems, guess what? Kids don't know how to feel shame, guilt, embarrassment, disappointment.
Yeah, so if a parent is more concerned about raising a happy child versus giving them their own autonomy, then are we failing as a parent?
Absolutely.
Oh, and then we get to fail. Yay. Hey, cheers. So
Well-
at least we have to get into the WTFs because I don't want to run off on the top. Why are you evil-eyeing me?
Sorry.
Do you not have a WTF today? We have to include Adam in them. He's a human that fails too.
Oh, you are?
Not as much as
We all thought you were
other people.
perfect. Well, we have to do our cheers first.
I know. Well, he's got water because he's not going to fail with his clients today.
No,
but we can
no.
at least cheers to being able to record and be together as people. Come
That's
on,
right.
stretch it.
Okay, we're
There
gonna
we
do
go.
it
Okay,
even
to
with the
allowing failure. Even if it's water, you got to slam it just because it gets rid
Oh.
of any potential evil spirits.
There you go.
And,
we
yeah.
do this thing.
Got it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Alrighty.
Better.
Much better. Let's move on.
Right?
Now we're
Now
ready
that
to
you
go.
wet the beak.
Wet the beak. Yep.
Used
for
to be a
sure.
whistle. Corey graduated us into wetting a
Whistle,
beak.
beak,
Which is
whatever.
very mother hen, and that doesn't really go for today. How do you wet the unicorn
Mother
wings?
hen is not a failure.
What
She's
about
like,
the unicorn horn?
Oh,
dipping
yeah.
that.
well, let's wet the unicorn horn.
Do you have a WTF today in your life?
Not really.
No.
I don't know.
How are you surviving with the world opening? Excited and
wait.
thriving, and
I can't wait. I mean, I'm very much an extrovert.
I don't know.
I'm starting to become an introvert.
You're kind of the hunker down variety.
Now I am. I used to be such an extrovert, but now I'm starting to be like, you know
there
what?
are no
Everybody just leave me alone.
So I do love the leave me alone.
I do like the leave me alone.
Mom, why is your face like that? I don't know. Leave me alone.
Right. I'm starting to kind of transition into the other side.
Yeah. Well, there's going to be another side.
Yeah.
I'm preparing shoes for the new world.
Oh,
Yeah. I have some clothing that I never even got to take the price tags off of because the world was shut down.
right.
I'm going to wear it outside. I think.
I'm waiting for the weather to turn so that we can all actually just get some fresh air. I know we've had a couple of nice days, but it's not enough.
It'll be
It's-
backyard culture this summer, but at
Yeah.
least warm weather.
We've had we got word that all of our pools are going to be closed, possibly until July, but we have
Ours
swim
is-
team is no longer,
Right.
water polo is no longer, and we were a big swim family.
Right.
And that's what my family looked forward to every summer is how I kept my kids in a routine and kept them physically healthy and mentally healthy, is the pool, the swim team. And so now that that's gone,
Well,
I'm
I
kind
know
of
you
freaking out a
love the
little bit.
catchwords, so I'll give you one. You're going to have to pivot.
Pivot?
You like how people are saying that? Those who survive will have to pivot and improvise. Right?
That is lame.
They're all lame. They're all lame.
I don't like
navigating these tough waters.
I don't like any of the COVID world
I know, it's why I wanted to
catchphrases.
give
I
you a new
can't
one. You
stand
have to
it.
pivot.
So you have to flatten the curve, right? That's
Well,
been
we did that.
No, but there were a bunch of catchphrases, right? Flatten the curve was
Yes.
one that I felt like if I heard that one more time,
Seriously.
it's
Flatten the
flattened.
curve.
It's flat. It's flat. It's flat. Okay, next.
Now we're starting to go concave.
Wait, we're sliding downhill. Help!
That
You have one. Do you have a moment or a thing?
Yeah, my thing is because like what you're saying, the just nothing's happening, right? So what bothers
just
me
sitting
is
here.
nothing is happening, and
That's why
so,
my shirt before was please hold, indefinite hold.
Yeah. We're just on hold.
It's so frustrating, and so what's really been driving me nuts is this whole thing with masks. Quite honestly, I mean, this whole thing starts. No one needs a mask. 8 weeks later, now you need a mask. Okay, it seems like it would have been helpful 8 weeks ago, but who am I? Then you see people, and I read an article about this too. So it always kind of and then I'm looking around. So you kind of go around your neighborhood and you see people going for a run or whatever. They're going for a run with a mask on, and you think. How can this possibly be good for you, right? Well,
And are you breathing?
well,
can't
hey,
breathe.
I have a solution to
breathe.
that. I have a story to this because I read an article. A guy goes out for a run, 2.5 miles with a mask on. His lung exploded. His lung exploded, and
Is
I
he
don't
They
know.
alive?
can do that?
I don't know, but his lung exploded. That doesn't sound like that'd be really good.
sound
No, it
good,
doesn't sound
yeah.
good at all. His lung burst because he was inhaling too much carbon dioxide. So I don't know
that's-
what anyone's learning about, but this is
This
where
is it's another video game. Choose your death. Lung explosion?
Yeah.
Ventilator
Yeah.
with COVID
Or the
in a
mask in your
hospital.
car when you're by yourself.
Yeah.
That's the other
Well,
thing.
there was
that
another article about that. Someone was
Yeah.
driving with a mask on, driving 6 hours, passed out, ran to a tree. You think
Also,
somewhere
you look like a
why
real dumbass with
are
that
you
thing
wearing
on.
a mask in your
I was
car
thinking about that the other day,
alone?
though. Okay,
Why?
I think the people that have it on in their car are running more than one errand and are very nervous about touching the mask to remove it when they only hand sanitized in their car and didn't wash their hands in bubbles.
Well, that's I think you're right on to something because I think it goes to
because why else would you make yourself look like that in your car?
A lot of people are doing it.
What it means is, and what it is driving this underlying mental health crisis, which is people who are becoming obsessive compulsive.
Yes,
If you had
exactly.
an obsessive compulsive tendency, this will
Full
put
blown.
you right over an
Full
edge.
blown.
Or you
And-
just fall really face first into a rabbit hole of conspiracy theories and government control and anarchy.
Well, that
or paranoia.
Yeah,
So,
well, right. And I feel like
Yeah.
people that did not have the predisposition are like
Well, I
swinging
told
on
my
the tendency
I
of
told MK the
OCD.
other day, I'm
Yeah.
like, I have the Jay-Z, like, I have 99 problems, but a bitch ain't
Yeah,
one.
yeah.
I told MK, I'm like, I have 99 problems and anxiety. She's like, you do not? I'm like, no, I have, like, COVID-induced anxiety now. I can't keep doing this. You missed our last episode where I just started driving and got coffee in Indiana. Because, my God, I'm losing my damn mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My is that the end of your WTF?
Yes, that is.
We are
No.
very lovingly interruptive.
Oh yeah.
Mine was that I think COVID bloating is a thing, whether or not you have a drinking problem.
Oh yeah.
Or maybe I just got fat from all the waffles in Tennessee.
people are wearing masks just to stop eating.
But I
that
think
might be true.
maybe like
Well, I read they had a remote. Someone invented a thing with a remote control something, and I heard this yesterday. And the mask so that you could eat, so that if you hit a button, there's like a thing on the mask that will open.
oh, for Christ's
and so that
sake.
you don't have to take the mask off.
They are getting creative.
Okay. It
is.
The
At least
masks
it's
are
so
getting creative.
innovation
Yeah.
and pivoting. So I feel like quarantine hormones are a thing, though. Mm-hmm. I do, because I'm not one where people are like, oh shit, here comes the cycle. Like, it's pretty even and okay. But my God, I can't keep like crying. I can't. So I
The
teach
COVID crying.
I teach all morning, right? And then I'm like, okay, time for my workout, which, is a screen anyway. Like, I'm trying to make sure the light is right and I can hear her, like, tell me exactly what to do.
Your workout? Like you're doing a workout on the screen?
Yeah.
Okay.
But then the kids are interrupting me 900,000 times, even though I said, okay, school's done.
Yeah.
I'm like, here's your screens. Now leave me alone.
Right.
It's very clear. Mm-hmm. She touched me
Doesn't
the
matter.
wrong way. I'm like, do you see what I'm doing? Like, do I look
I'm in
available?
Downward Dog.
I mean,
Go
I
away.
am. So I'm just getting more and more upset.
Yeah.
Like, my face is starting to fall, and
Fall
I'm
down.
upset. And I have to keep pausing it and pausing it, which is fine because it's a bar workout. It's not
Yeah.
whatever other people do. Like, it goes through thigh work and whatever. But still, like, I keep pausing it. So it was like the 9,000th time that I had to pause it for some dumb ass request. Mm-hmm. So I'm in a long arm plank. And I'm supposed to be doing something else now. She's moved on. Mm-hmm. But somebody's talking to me. Somebody that I've given birth to is talking to me again. So I just started to cry in my plank. And like tears are hitting the mat. And they're like, Mom, are you okay? I'm like, yup. I sure am. That's my WTF. Like, go away.
Yeah.
When I teach you all morning in a loving Mary Poppins fashion, at 1:00, you better get away from me. Mm-hmm. That's all.
Zero boundaries.
I'm trying to put one there, but like,
No, I'm not saying you. I'm saying they have zero boundaries.
zero.
Yeah.
Well, the problem is that kids have nowhere to go either. Everyone's
I know,
stuck.
but I'm
Everyone's just
staring
stuck, just
at the
being-
floor. Like, I'm not even looking up.
Well, then they have your undivided attention. See,
Well, they
you're
should
clearly
just
not doing anything else.
Crawl underneath me. Hey!
There you go.
Exactly.
So, okay.
Well,
So we've all have WTF, but we're just going to make a hard shift to failure.
yeah. I mean, so with the failure part, I mean, if you allow your child to fail, are you a failure as a parent?
So it's always so interesting because the failure piece, we talk about failing. It's really just more about, in my view, how do you prepare young people for adult life, right? I mean, that's really the question. And you have, I think, two schools of thought. You have a group of parents who believe that their job as a parent is to raise their kids so they can look as great as they can on paper the day they graduate high school. And you have a group of parents that want to raise their kids to be adaptive and independent adults. But the reality is you can't have it both ways. It's impossible to have it both ways, because if
There's not a healthy medium?
there is no middle.
Do you think the
Because
parents start out one or the other?
I think,
Or there's a point where we choose one of those?
I think it depends. I think you have some people who definitely start out that way. I think you have other people that get pulled into that aren't sure what to do, and they get sucked into culture and what that message is, and then they wind up picking a side. But as a parent, you really can't have it both ways, because if a kid is going to look as great as they can on paper, that means you're going to do whatever you can as a parent to remove all the obstacles in order for that to happen.
Well, of course,
right?
because otherwise something will not be perfect on paper.
That's the point, right? So if you're raising a kid to be adaptive and independent, it means that when they have their hardship, you're going to let them figure it out. So if it means that, they get cut from a team, or, they have a hard time with friends or whatever, they just have a couple of bad semesters in high school, you're going to let that play out, because you're going to let your kids work through it and not remove the problem, so that by the time they graduate, could they have looked better on paper? Maybe, but
because a piece of paper is never going to say handled adversity with character and love. That's not a thing.
Nope.
To put on paper.
So that's why, as a parent, you have to start questioning, who are you raising? Are you raising a young person with these well-developed intangible skills, or you want to raise somebody who's just been externally validated through grades and test scores? And there's just two distinct trains, right? So the reason why failure is such a nice buzzword is because failure ultimately encapsulates all the intangibles. All the intangibles that people learn and that correlate to thriving into adulthood comes through process of learning, not how well you can regurgitate what you've been taught. So there's that difference in it that I think that more and more people are resonating to. And quite honestly, the amount of, like I said, I've talked to thousands of parents over the past couple of years. So many parents, right, would say, you could sit and talk to somebody and say, my kid has to go to a good college, right? Then you could say, okay, when you look in your personal life, like, where did anyone that go to college, like, that you view as successful? Well, I don't know. Right. So we have this view of you have to go with a certain route in order to be successful. But when it starts to be challenged in one's personal life, you find that there's not as many people that went that route and found success as one would think. Right. So there's this construct that there's only one route. But the reality is it's 1,000 different ways. So people just need to, challenge themselves a little bit more on it. Plus the fact that when we talk about, emotional development of kids, most adults would say emotional intelligence is essential to being, is essential to success as an adult, right? I mean, that's what most people say.
But we just want that to happen organically.
Well, exactly. It just have to be, but then what happens is our culture says, well, everyone has to feel good all the time. So we're going to say, as parents, emotional intelligence is really important. But as parents, we'll say, but I really only want you to feel happy and excited about something, right? We only want to focus on one side of the coin of emotion, not the negative side. And that's where, as parents, we do fail, because somewhere along the way, parents got really uncomfortable watching kids cry. They got really uncomfortable watching them get upset.
Hedonism is deeply embedded, though, for sure. We don't want the kids to hurt. We don't want to deal with it either.
No, we don't.
Because everybody wants the feel-good culture.
Everyone does. And then and no one wants to pick up the pieces of the mess that creates.
So is failure actually a gift then?
Of what could be given to kids?
Well, being given the opportunity to fail?
The opportunity to fail, and then use that to build your character. And
I think the gift is having a parent that has the wisdom and discernment to say, this is the thing I'm going to let you fail at. I'm going to let you feel this pain. I'm going to love you through the pain, because that's its own also huge lesson. Because you could be like, well, looks like you didn't make the team, loser, good luck. Or you could validate how much that sucks and talk about the emotion and the healing and the change in perspective, right? Like that thing that a mom could say, or like, so say the kid doesn't make whatever team. Like MK didn't make the lead role in Mary Poppins. I mean, and it's adorable to have an 8-year-old assume they're going to get the lead role. They're not. But she was like, well, why wouldn't she think that? So the first gift is you've raised a child that thinks the world is so magical that she would get a lead role from just putting forth best effort. Why not?
But then the reality is
you should have that sort of like optimism and motivation, but you're not going to get the lead role. So she was the whole like Jan Brady devastation, like threw herself on the bed, you know, face in the pillow. But that gift is being able to to let them feel and to love them through that. Not to say, well, I'm going to call the director and make sure you get a better role, because it's bullshit. You're a
Dozen people
talented
do
kid.
that.
I know they do.
There is a
then-
group of parents out there that does that.
I know.
They do their homework for their kids.
They have branded
yeah.
themselves the helicopter moms.
So, yes,
Or
exactly.
the helicopter hover. But I
Helicopter.
wanted to bring Christy to this, who I love so much, because I let mine fall all over the playground and potentially break themselves. I have a rule that if you got yourself up, you have to get yourself down.
Yeah.
A hard, mean rule. I will stand back and have a useless and long conversation and let them slip all over the monkey bars. And mine are little daredevil assholes. Like, they'll walk on the top of it, and I just, like, don't look, because they're going to crack something. So Christy, I was talking to her, and she's like, she's like, you're driving me nuts. Go get your kids. Like, they're not safe over there. I'm like, oh no, they know I don't help them, and if they fall, then they learn to not climb
she
on
the
top
one, like,
of it anymore.
underneath the monkey bars,
She
like-
couldn't
like
handle it.
spotting
She's
her
like, I
children?
can't stand it. I'm gonna go and help them.
Yeah.
And she would run and help my kids. I'm like, suit yourself. I'm gonna stand here.
So, can you still build resilient kids, Adam, if
If
you're
you
a
get them
helicopter
off the
parent?
monkey bars, if you save them from the monkey bars.
This has been the evolution, right? I mean, when you look at like in the example I is the easiest example, right? If you think back to 30 years ago, right, growing up, if you thought about if you were in high school, right, and you wanted to hang out with your friends on a Saturday night, and your parents said to you, you know what, we're going to go to this family barbecue Saturday afternoon, right? Then we'll be home for you to go out. You would have to go to the barbecue. You couldn't talk to anybody, right? You couldn't call your friends. Like, you couldn't do anything. You had to wait to get home, right? Then when you were home, you picked up your house phone, you called their house, right? The busy signals, the endless ringing.
But we have
Sometimes
to have patience like no other.
Yeah,
I
that's-
spent like entire days in a Napa auto parts shop, just waiting.
And that's the piece, right? And so when you think
hours.
about what technology has done to our culture, delayed gratification was embedded in our culture, right? And I mean, if you keep going back, like, think about not having to go to a well for water, right? I mean, talk about delayed gratification. Like, you had to walk 1.5 miles just to fill a bucket,
Get water,
right?
yeah.
That like, it was always embedded in our culture.
So do we have a thing now?
Well, now technology has really eliminated a lot of that, right?
Surely there's something.
Well, now as parents, we have to be cognizant
That's
of
why we
creating
got the COVID.
This has brought on
It's-
like giving us a reality check, right?
We have to artificially create it. I mean, and it's little, and it becomes little things, right? Like, I talk to a lot of parents, like, just some little examples of, like, kids in elementary school get Chromebooks now, right? In many grades. So oftentimes what happens is you have a kid with a Chromebook, and the charger's up in their room, right? It's bedtime. The Chromebook is downstairs. Who is getting the Chromebook?
Nobody.
In many houses, parents will just run down and get it because they don't want to have the fight with the kid to go down and get it themselves, right?
I don't have
And
the fight. I let them take the dead book to school.
Well, I said many parents.
Oh,
Not everyone.
because I could
Or-
give
Not
one shit.
unicorns.
It's not my Chromebook. It's not my Chromebook.
I feel the same. I feel the same.
that's exactly the point. If they're not going to go get it, then deal with the consequences of having an uncharged Chromebook.
Well, then I
have
get a
been
teacher. Then
completely
I get
fine
teacher email.
with sending that to school dead.
Teachers email me. Please make sure. I'm like, that. You need to remind my kid that it's not my Chromebook.
Or for all they know, you have mentioned it multiple times. Charge your Chromebook. Charge your Chromebook.
I
If they
haven't.
don't,
I
no.
don't
But
care.
I'm just saying, like, I have been in that position, and where I've gotten the email, and I'm like, so I will remind, because they're kids, the short attention spans, they need reminders, whatever. I'll remind. If you don't do it, that's on you.
And that's where it's why I wrote my book, quite honestly, is because parents have to have a strategy about how are they going to go about this. Because
we do.
If their strategy is one of, I just want to make sure everything goes well for them, that's going to take you down a certain parenting path. If your strategy is, you know what, they've got to own and be accountable for their choices and actions, that's going to take you down another parenting path. But a lot of parents have to pre-decide that path with a strategy.
For me personally, the one is less stressful, but more laborious. As far as I'm not personally stressed out about the Chromebook being charged. I don't give a shit about that. But it takes energy away from me to let my child experience it and be empowered, because then I have to constantly be there to support how they're feeling as they continue to fail. My life, I think, would be easier if I would just plug it in.
Oh, well, and that's why most parents do it, because they don't want to have the argument. They don't want to get the email. They don't want to go through all the, ripple effects of the decision.
I don't either, but
It's
I don't want a
easier.
20-year-old that doesn't know how to plug in a Chromebook
but
either.
That's the strategy, right? It's a long-term strategy
You're
versus
looking at the
short-term
big
game.
picture.
That's exactly it.
Well, God damn it. Maybe I should look at a smaller one.
But what
It's hard.
But what about sometimes? Like, what?
Well,
does
I mean,
it have to be like a consistent? No, I'm not doing this for you. No, I'm not doing. Like, what if just one night you're like, oh, screw it.
Yeah, not at all. Because but this is the whole point, right? Like another example I like to use is like if a kid is, a lot of times in houses, right, you have a kitchen and a family room. They're usually right next to each other in some capacity, and so a lot of times parents are in the kitchen doing whatever, and kids are in the family room watching TV, right? So how many times does a kid say, "Hey, I'm thirsty. Can you get me something to drink?" Right? And the amount of times as a parent we're in the kitchen, we're in front of the sink, the cups are right here. We just, just through kind of rote memory, just do it for them, right?
I have a kid that's bad with that.
And so it's amazing as parents, if we said, no, look, you got two legs, get it yourself, right? But so to your point of, is it okay to do it sometimes? I think the answer has to be yes, because when kids understand that they have to be accountable and responsible for what they do, and then on the flip side, there are times where as a parent, you can, you do it for them. Now kids understand the concept of a favor. Right? They get a concept of that was actually really helpful what you just did, because I didn't have to do that, and it was just kind of such a pain in this moment.
They can see the difference.
So versus if
sense.
you always do it for them, they just think that they're entitled to it.
Right.
And that's
I like this way better, because then when you
difference.
sneak it in, it's like this little surprising act of love.
Yeah.
Versus why didn't you? Because I'll do that. I have it set
then
up
it becomes
to where they can get
expected.
their
Yes.
and that's not going to
No,
fly.
I don't like that.
No. I have it set up to where they can all get their own water, because that's the most annoying. But sometimes I will not only give them the water, but I'll open a sparkling water, and it's obviously an act of love. But then it's noticed.
Yeah.
Which feels really good as a mom, right? Because we're constantly doing things out of love that go seemingly unnoticed.
Oh, the most
Forever.
thankless job.
I mean, I can't even get through a freaking plank, right? Without
Not without crying. You're either crying at the wall or the floor, Dodson.
I'm surviving a quarantine.
Get it together.
I'm trying. I'm being very honest about my
You're a
struggles.
crier.
At
I'm not a
least.
crier.
I know, you're balls to the wall.
Baltic
Mine
Sea
are
over here.
Oh, she's crying. I didn't used to be such a crier, though. It's my way of coping.
I
she's crying
cry
again.
about big things. Big,
I don't.
impactful things.
You can have me homeless in Tennessee and I won't shed a tear. But don't interrupt my plank or I'll start to cry again. Okay,
Pick out the important things.
I have a hard question for you. Well,
okay.
I think it's a hard one.
All right.
Well, you'll have to be very human for it.
I'll try.
Which will be okay.
A challenge for me, maybe.
Okay. Well, I think you kind of got to the point of is there a thing as failing too hard, sort of. But you are dad and professional. And I know that you believe in this as a parent, a tenet of parenting, not just a way for bettering society and through the practice. So do you act differently with the failure component as a dad? Do you find yourself toying with that idea oh, I want to react this way as a professional versus a dad? Like, do you practice what you preach, and does that come easily?
No, it comes very easily. Actually,
does.
yeah, because I feel like, just for myself personally, I grew, when I look at my own kind of life experiences, kind of going, just through a whole bunch of things. I was never great in school. I never took tests well. Like that was never anything that was a strength of mine. So, so I always kind of, so there's that kind of piece on the side. I grew up playing goalie in many sports. And so the idea of kind of letting go of the bad things and do better, like on that next one.
Well, that's a hard position to play because you will miss the ball.
Absolutely. It's inevitable. And so you've got to mentally get in a position of next play, right? You have to kind of, so I feel like that's kind of been primed. But then when I look at like, if I look at just, again, my own kind of career trajectory, other people I know, like I have not seen out of myself anything that says, anything on paper dictating where I've ended today. It hasn't worked. It's always been through trying new things, putting new things out there, and following the road of effort. I'm a firm believer in creating your own luck. And if you're not prepared to be wrong, it's really hard to create your own luck. So with my kids, or being around as a parent in general, I'm actually more along the lines of take the risk, bomb out, and see where you end up, and almost push that a little too much, and not really think as much about what are the potential psychological like consequences given how old my kids might be at any given period of time. I'm like, look, you'll be fine.
But you get to look to yourself
just kind of go
personally,
through it.
though, as reinforcement of the fact that approach doesn't.
Because I've never, and
it works. It worked for you.
But it works for a lot of people. I mean, that's the thing.
But
It's
you are bringing that to your own parenting. Though.
Well, absolutely. Because if someone, there's no way I will ever be convinced. And I've, it's also one of these things. I found enough research to support, although you do that with anything with research. But I found enough out there that correlates that say the things that we tend to value culturally around colleges, test scores, honors, all that kind of stuff. None of those things correlate to future adult performance. It's a whole bunch. It's the intangible skills that do.
So where do you draw the line, Adam? Like where you let them fail versus, okay, I need to step in and make sure that this doesn't happen for my child. Like, you let them fail at not charging their Chromebook, right? Big deal. That's one day out of elementary school, junior high. Where's the line, if there is a line, where maybe, if it has to do with getting into college, or it has to do with a job, or it has to do with, I don't know, something of a bigger scale than where.
But that's what I'm saying. That's where you have to trust the strategy. I'm not totally sure that there is a line in the sense that.
It's always moving, isn't it?
Well, but the strategy isn't.
The line.
But the line. I think it depends. So let's drive it. Let's draw it.
You might say, I'm not going to let my third grader go hungry. But when they get to middle school, and if you're still bringing them their lunch, you might be like, you know what? Go hungry.
Well, and that was my point. That's where I was going to go to. Like, let's divvy this up a little bit, the way you're talking about it. So, in my view, there's a piece as if we look at kids, let's say high school age and younger. To me, as a parent, you're supposed to go from a parent to a coach, right? There's a point in which, as a parent, like, when kids are young, if they're 5, 6 years old, 7 years old, you'll be more active in getting them breakfast in the morning, right? If kids are in high school, you'd expect them to maybe make their own breakfast in the morning, right? Like there's a point in which you want them to transition into being more and more independent. So
you have to know what's age appropriate,
and that's what I'm saying, and where your kids are at. So when kids are younger, you tend to be an active parent. As they get older, we should be looking at it as being a coach, meaning, if a kid has something going on, let's say, difficulties with friends or whatever, and they're in junior high school, well, we're transitioning from a parent into a coach. So we should be talking with our kids about it, giving them advice, and then sending them out to try whatever they feel like is best, because we also want our kids to trust their own decision making, even if it means watching them make bad decisions.
Well, right, because what if they are moms one day and they don't know how to do that for 1 second? What if they're calling us and they're like, so-and-so, Bonnie and Tony forgot their lunches. What should I do? What if they say that and they don't know what to do?
But do you think that as an adult that is realistic? Like,
I don't know because
I don't.
I only
They-
know my way of almost going too far with letting them fall down all
It's
the time.
like one of those things where
I'm
your
like-
child is, has a bedwetting problem. Well, chances are they're not going to go to college wetting their bed, right? It's just something that evolves as a human.
But
it's skill development though also.
Well, but again, it's the longer term strategy piece. It's not the failing itself. It's the idea is what does the failing teach?
Yeah,
right?
it's the lesson in the failure.
And so the lesson in it, in many respects, comes to adapting. How are you going to shift gears when things don't go the way that you intend? And these points to me are what do correlate to research of successful adults as far as the intangible skills go. So adaptability being one, being able to make being able just to make decisions. Quick decision making is one. Not the right decisions, not perfect decisions, but quick decisions. Being able to make those decisions is also another one. And so we want kids, the more confident they are in themselves, the more able they are to be decisive, right? So we want to build that confidence, and feeling confident means that they know that they can make a decision and overcome whether it works out or it doesn't. We want to build those things. And another part is reliability, being able to count on oneself, right? Being able to say that, hold themselves to a high standard day in and day out. If someone else is responsible for those Chromebooks or bringing the lunches, they're not really developing reliability.
Yeah,
They're learning how to lean on other
that's a cushy
people.
life, but you probably don't look at yourself, and if you have that life where like mommy did your laundry and brought you food, do you look at yourself and like feel all of this like integrity and respect, or do you just feel like, well, that worked for me, now I can go back to doing whatever I want to do?
Well, so there have been a couple of incidences where I've gotten a phone call from one of my boys from high school, and he's like, Mom, I have basketball practice after school. I forgot my basketball shoes. They're in my room. They're in my closet. Can you bring them by such and such time? Because if I don't have them, then I can't practice and I'm going to be sitting out at the next game. There's like all these repercussions.
But I know you, and I know in that moment that you've stopped and said to yourself, you know what? This kid works hard and has good grades and is a trustworthy, accountable student who made a mistake. And as a mom, I'm going to drive the shoes.
Yeah. And so I will give the whole speech of like, you need to be responsible. You have practice after school today, blah, blah, blah. But in the back of my mind, I'm like, I live 2 minutes down the street. I'm not doing anything right now. I have the time to bring it. Do I want him to miss his last basketball game because he didn't go to practice and so he's going to be benched for the last game? Like there's all these,
Adam,
it's
that's
like a
what's
snowball
exhausting, is
effect.
that I feel like I have to choose, even though I have a strategy and what I know is the way I want to mother, I still have to talk to myself every time.
You
and
do.
that is exhausting.
Well, it's hard because you have to reinforce the strategy. Like what you're saying, like I don't think that there's a problem with that in the sense that, because look, everyone makes mistakes, right?
And if it's an isolated incident, if it happens every single day,
that's a different
then I'm
story.
going to get to a point where I'm going to be like, nope, you're benched.
And that's the point, right? So you want to be able to, people, even the most reliable of people aren't perfect. But the other fact of the matter is that, we also want, when we run into problems as adults, right? Because we all do, like we all forget, we all kind of, create our own train wrecks. At some point, we also do ask for help. Right? I mean, we ask for someone to help us out. And so the fact that people know that we tend to be reliable also tends to increase the likelihood that someone's going to want to help us.
So
right?
that brings,
these things kind of go
well, and I
hand
feel
in
like
hand a little
sometimes when they can make a good argument, and I don't mean that in a way where they're trying to like manipulate and make sure that we bring the shoes, but I've gotten some really solid arguments from my teen as to why I should do a certain thing. And she of course wraps it up in like, I know this is my fault, and I promised to do a chore to replace the energy that you had to expend when I get home, like on and on.
Well, that's a different story.
But I feel like when it becomes a campaign to, here are all of the reasons why I need you to bring this thing for me, then I'm like, well, I must have laid some decent groundwork at least, that my kid knows that this is not just a thing that I'm sitting around waiting to do. Right?
So, yes. And and one of the things that, like, as far as the adults, like what is the importance of kids seeing you as an adult or as a parent failing, how is that important for your kids to see? Or is it important for your kids to see?
Well, I think the bigger part of it is that as an adult, adults who are outcomes focused versus adults who believe that you never actually get to where you're going, right? That there's an eternal process. And I think we tend to look at things and say, as long as you get to here, everything will be fine. Or as long as I can, get this job or make this money or live in this house, right? But we set these arbitrary kind of type goals and say that as long as we hit those things, everything is going to be fine. That's where the problem lies. I think as adults, we have to be saying, look, no matter where we end up, there's a constant process of learning. We're never where we need to be, right? And I think it's that type of attitude, that whole idea of growth mindset versus fixed. That growth mindset that Angela Duckworth wrote about in Grit when she wrote that book, that the whole concept of it's just an eternal process. And if you can really embed that type of thinking into kids, that no matter how well they're doing on tests or poorly, no matter how well they're doing athletically or not, or with arts or whatever, that there's always needs to be a push to keep moving forward. If they can get that mindset in, that it's not going to be perfect, but it's that desire to learn and having that curiosity, that's going to serve them way better going on than actually attaining whatever goals they're setting out to do.
Right.
So it's about
That
the
would be a
development
neat
of the
thing,
mindset.
right? If on the piece of paper it said like desire to continue to learn, check, right?
Things can look just absolutely amazing on paper, but your kid can be a dick.
Totally.
I mean, seriously,
Well, and-
just to put it bluntly,
Yeah.
it's true.
Yeah. Well,
even
in
wanna-
our own houses, we have that kind of variety.
For sure. If I were hiring an employee, great. So you went to a great college, but do you have integrity? Do you have,
Are you
a
a
work
name
ethic?
caller?
Are you just an asshole? Those are all there's character qualities that sometimes I believe, at least the way that I like to parent and raise my kids, that there are character qualities that far exceed things that can be put on paper. And so I think that, and I'm not saying that that's the right way. I'm saying that's just my personal belief and my personal.
I think it's the harder thing because it's intangible. It's the harder thing to stay focused on it and remember. It's not in front of us. It's not something people don't walk around like Steve Jobs and say like, "Hey, do you like to continue to learn? Are you a person of integrity that owns mistakes? Good for you." That's not a thing.
Well, and God bless Steve Jobs for and God rest his soul. But I heard that he was a major total asshole.
You did?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh.
And the other part too
You
is
always
that
have the media that I don't get. I love you for that. You know everything I don't.
Did you hear that?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
He was really tough. And the other part though is that, all research says that there's absolutely no correlation between colleges that kids attend and how successful they're going to be when they're older. There's no research that supports it.
Right.
But yet we function culturally in the academic industry like it's the be all.
But how does a
do,
really
but I
great
think-
person make a great resume if they have no great,
Because they get help from the helicopter mommy, getting them the job, telling them how to do the job, making sure they don't fuck up the job. But I think this is all going to shift a little bit, at least be like jostled up. Maybe shift is too big, but jostled and further rethinking through school is all online right now, even college. So right now, it doesn't really matter if you're online at Harvard or online at ABC.
Well, one of the interesting things I read about was, and
It's
it was an article from a college president that was flat out questioning the value of the standardized testing industry, because this year for colleges, no one is going to take the SATs or
Right.
have a real valid
Right.
question
This
about
is
it.
gonna
So
mix
he
things
was
up a
really
little.
saying, it's a $1 billion industry. How
I know.
how
Well, and
necessary
they have,
is it?
just on name, they get that. What's the fancy name for the money that they receive?
Grants,
No, there's some pretty name for it. Endowment.
yeah.
Yeah.
All of that is gone. Everything is just like, what skills are you going to acquire? What skills and knowledge will you leave with that you can do something with? That's it.
I know.
And things are weird also because now it's like, landscapers are eating. They're fine. People are
this is
questioning-
changing our
They're
view on the world.
questioning
This
their
is changing the
high-end
world.
degrees. When people are like, what are you majoring in? And they're like, well, the underbelly implications of art history from the postmodern world. Oh,
Great.
Really? Still? In the,
How'd you even know how that phrase?
I'm about ready to like pay.
What is that phrase?
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Underbelly. What?
I know, right?
Postmodern.
I just
Well,
kind of
we
let
just
that
live
one
our lives,
fly.
I know.
Yeah.
What is that? What is that?
because that's what it sounds like sometimes. People say what they're studying.
I'm about
You're
ready
like,
to pay $5,000 for a haircut. So if you went to beauty
Exactly.
school, like you're golden.
Well, this is what I'm saying. It's like everything's a little bit up for grabs right now,
Yeah.
right? Like when the dust settles, it will settle on a different landscape, but it won't be the same where it's like I'm studying blah blah blah.
It'll never be the same.
50,000 a year at
It'll
Yale.
never
No,
be the
you're
same.
not. Go wipe your butt. You're
yeah,
not.
right, because the toilet paper. I mean,
Hey, do you make toilet paper? Asking for a friend.
you are golden. All right. Well,
I don't have a win except that I'm gonna look for a win in the post world.
how about like I guess like along the lines of failure, I think I can pull a win out of the fact that I make a conscious choice as a parent to pick my situations where I will let failure happen and see where that takes us. I mean,
Yeah, and that, I mean, in many
I'm not the
respects-
one. I'm not the one that does my kids' homework. If my kid doesn't make a team, I'm not calling the coach and making them say, "I donate X amount of dollars to the booster club. Put my kid on the A team now." I'm not that person.
No, and,
Yeah.
I think in many respects, as long as we just understand that it's all about the process of learning. It's not. I mean, the Edison's quote when after he invented the light bulb, because he tried 10,000 times to create it, and someone said, "How did it feel to fail 10,000 times before you got this?" And he said, "I didn't fail 10,000 times. The light bulb was just an invention of 10,000 steps." So it's that type of mentality.
Oh, see, it's the perspective.
It's
We
the
should just
perspective.
call it the steps
It's
episode.
it's the perspective on it.
Absolutely. Okay, well, if you want to see more on failure and raising your kids to be successful adults, please read Adam Russo's book, Unwritten Rules.
Cheers to that.
Cheers to that. Cheers to failing.
Here's to failing. Raise the water.
Cheers to failing.
There we go,
There we go.
All right, cheers.